If you will allow me, I want to travel back in time 8 days. Game 4. 9 minutes and 33 seconds left in the fourth quarter. The Knicks are down 20. The analytics guys, the sports betting companies, the pundits who watch from far away, they do what they do. They run the numbers. They calculate the odds. They write the Knicks off. They give the Spurs a 99.6% chance of winning the game. A 99.6% chance of tying up the series 2-2, of reclaiming the momentum with the next game in San Antonio. A 99.6% chance of silencing the Garden, of another year of watching and waiting. But there is one thing that the pundits just don't get about this team, that they just don't get about this city. It is in that 0.4% that we go to work.
Welcome to Outside Issues with Audrey and Patrick.
Happy Pride in downtown Seattle. Everywhere in Seattle, it's all rainbows, and it's a fantastic thing to see. Seattle goes all out for Pride Month. But then we have the World Cup coming up, where our mayor, I really like her. She's actually a Democratic Socialist. She did say that there's no cars allowed around the area. So cars will be banned on certain streets, and people are just up in arms about it. You have to take a bike or you have to take a scooter or something to get to the World Cup. I don't think you can park or anything like that. There's satellite parking lots with shuttles, and
That's probably that's a good thing though, right? But that has to do with the World Cup, and not Pride necessarily, right?
Right, yeah. The World Cup's coming up, and then Pride. Well, Pride is in Seattle is just this bunch of happy decorations, happy celebratory decorations, just nothing but joy. And then we have the World Cup that's going to be stressful for commuters. So that's the haps in Seattle over here. But yeah, Pride Month is a big deal.
I saw the most beautiful clip. It was going around of Heath Ledger doing press for Brokeback Mountain, and
I saw that on your Instagram story.
Yeah. But I just thought I loved how eloquently you put it about the way that one human being loves another, is it's a beautiful thing. Everybody should be able to love who they want to love, because they are just as entitled to that connection as I am to my boring ass hetero connection, and
a lot of people who are anti-trans, which I just don't understand that either. How can you be an anti-person? Will claim that being transgender is a mental illness, and it's not. It was classified in the DSM. We currently have the DSM-5, which is the diagnostical guide of mental disorders, if you will. And the DSM-5 came out maybe about 13 years ago or something, maybe a little less. But the DSM-4 had not gender dysphoria, but I think gender identity disorder written in it.
Okay.
And so people will still run with that outdated, that antiquated diagnosis and say, well, I just don't or I don't accept trans people because they don't have a mental illness and they're not getting treated. And it's gender identity has nothing to do with mental illness. Gender dysphoria has nothing to do with mental illness. It has to do with your identity. And so I think a lot of people are still in that mindset of, well, there's something wrong with you, when it's just, you were born in the wrong body.
Right. And there's something, and it's funny, that assessment of there's something wrong with you, right? Mm-hmm. It's don't they realize what they're just saying is, could you just be different to make me feel better about what it is that I'm seeing? It's not about their comfort. It's not about their well-being, treating it is just about, can you please just fit into, please remind me, make me feel like it's the 1950s, please. I just really want to feel like it's the 1950s, and, I'm going to be really anxious if I don't. And,
Yeah, that's your mental.
Yeah, it's about you, dude.
Yeah, that's your generalized anxiety disorder that I
it sounds like, right. It's sounds like you've got a mental illness you need to be treating somehow. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I call it, transphobia, people are genuinely scared of trans people, and That's another thing I just, in my human brain, I can't comprehend it. Same as, being a normie. It's, it's hard to comprehend, but I understand some of the data based on that antiquated diagnosis. But it's like, how can you be so hateful and afraid of somebody who just is themselves? If you're not a serial killer, if you're not like committing crimes be- because of your transness, like nobody commits any crimes because of your transness. So why are you so afraid? If you're afraid of crime somehow, which I
Yeah.
guess everybody is afraid of crime, then do you think all of these people are criminals like Nancy Mace does? Who
Well, she says a lot of these people see, and then that's the thing. I think half of, before talking about Republican politicians, or even some, cynical Democrat politicians who
Mhm.
espouse anti-trans views, like half of them don't even give a shit.
No.
They just know that there's a base that does, and they're just saying the words. I believe in the right of every person to self-determination and
Mhm.
to like actualize like a vision for themselves with the limited time they have on earth that like fits their own definition of beauty, or like, just like, I don't know, we all have this image of like, oh, like, this is where I want to get in my life, the most recovered, strongest, smartest, after I've done the work and whatever, and you kind of imagine yourself as being like on some pinnacle or whatever, and then like your life becomes like a journey towards getting to somewhere on that road, right? And so I feel like I look at gender identity as like, well, if you're born, a boy, and you see yourself as a girl, then you should be able to actualize that, and like, that's becomes your journey. And if we really believe about freedom, if we really believe about like, what's all this money for? What's all this progress and all this knowledge? And it's to help us become who we want to be, and on this, in this world. And so like I when I look at, somebody like transitions, or somebody's taking the hormones, or somebody's wearing the clothes, or somebody changes their pronouns, and I think it's a beautiful thing. Yeah, it changes their name. It's like, oh my god, now you're just like, closer to being yourself.
Then you are yourself. You've got nowhere else to go but up. I mean, and our society tries to push them down, but the only way that once somebody realizes that their gender identity is something that was supposed to be happening at birth, but it's, you know, I was born male, I'm actually female, I feel like a woman, then, the only way to go there good go from there is up, and to better yourself and to understand yourself as that gender. And we should have a society that lets people do that and be free to do that openly. But unfortunately, we have so many people who are transphobic and not understanding. And then the politicians that want to make people take off their pants in the bathroom to show their genitalia. It's disgusting. My thing is when people use the point men and women's sports, because that's like, I feel like that's the last resort for people to try to knock the trans people down, is like, men, because they're biologically male, they can do better than the women and everything. It's like, so you're going to police like a high school football game or a high school basketball game. Hopefully women get their own football teams pretty soon mainstream, but, say like women's cross country or something like that. And, oh, well, a male has more endurance or something. Who fucking cares? You're going to police a high school cross country game? Like who cares? Who
Right.
fucking cares? This student or this person competing is a girl or is a woman. That is what they have transitioned into. So put them in the correct bracket. It's just I don't understand, and I feel like it's a last ditch effort from the other side to get us to be like concerned about trans people. It's
Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
stupid.
That's the thing they found that kind of worked, because for the most part, broadly, people don't give a shit because of all the progress that was made in terms of gay marriage. And, like, I think people culturally, most people came to terms with, with gay people and, their right to self-determination. So, inevitably, there's going to be a large contingent within that's going to be, friendly and open to trans people or across the non-binary spectrum. So yeah, the concern over fairness in sports became the vector through which they are able to like activate people's bigotry. So yeah, it helps that I'm not a big sports guy. I'm like the wrong guy to talk to about anything sports pretty much. But I categorically, I just like with waste, fraud, and abuse and government spending, my dad was getting into that a little bit. It's like he will hate Elon Musk like I do, and despise what Doge did, but then he feels he has to attaboy this principle of rooting out the freeloaders, in government, or some people are just there. Some people are taking home too much money. Nurses are taking home too much money at the end of the year, and I'm just like, no, they're not, and yeah, nurses. It's like, I think my dad was telling me that nurses in California, he read somewhere, were taking home like 80 or 100 grand a year or something like that, like on average. And I was like, good. That's a hard
Yeah, that's
job.
what they deserve.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, like they're working, and I mean, and especially in California with the cost of living, it's like wages need to meet the cost of living. I mean, that's like, and when that's way out of balance, then you've got a real problem, and that's where we're at right now. And don't want to get make too much of a digression, but just making a point that like you absolutely do not need to attaboy these people or kind of like do that centrist thing of like, well, maybe maybe there's a point, or maybe I can meet them in the middle on this. It's like, no, when you're going out of your way to target a vulnerable population and get them to kill themselves, and deny them medical treatment, I don't give a shit what your reasons are. You know what I mean? Like, if somebody, if we want to talk at a much later date, once like this damage has been undone a little bit about sports, then we can have that conversation. But until then, I want to be a rock, like a stump. I want to be a rock, like just immovable. I don't give a shit. Fuck you. You know what I mean? No attaboys. No attaboys until, we take care of some of these people that you fucked up. Yeah. You took some time off work to recharge, and now you've been back maybe 2 to 3 months. How is it?
It's still going. I've realized that the work that I do is very physically and emotionally draining. And I have to, even though I had a medical break, I still have to sometimes do the bare minimum in life, just show up. And that seems to be working for me and my maintenance of stress level. I've been quite honestly pretty stressed, but that's just a result of a lot of, I guess you could say, PTSD stuff where my system's always on hyper alert, thinking the other shoe's going to drop. A lot of anxiety, but once I try to therapize myself and get to the point where it's like, okay, well, what's the proof that you're not a shitty clinician? Okay, this, that, the other thing. Well, what's the proof that you are a shitty clinician? Then you try to think, and you're like, I can't really think of anything. So,
Is that what your negative self-talk tells you, that you're a shitty clinician?
but yeah, yeah, it always tells me I'm a shitty clinician.
What's
Like,
what's its evidence?
it doesn't have any. Like, I mean, I don't want to sound like tooting my own horn, but it doesn't really, yeah, I'm not a shit clinician. I need to like recognize that because I know I've helped a lot of people, and so I'm glad that I'm starting to realize that a little bit without some external proof. But the negative self-talk is always, you're a shit clinician. Your clients are looking at you dumbfounded, like what is this bitch saying? Like a lot of stuff just being like imposter syndrome type shit. Like, what am I doing here? Am I even good enough to be here? I talked to my supervisor about imposter syndrome the other day, and it was a good conversation.
What was so would you say that social work, is it more head or heart oriented? Because I know it's both, but like, what do you feel it requires you to summon, like more often than not? Is it just a heart connected empathic thing, or is it real clinical, like nitty gritty, you know,
It's funny because it starts out with the heart. A lot of people who are social workers have been through a lot of shit themselves. And
like
so I think,
yourself?
like myself, yeah. And so I think that a lot of the times you start out with your heart because you just want to help people. That was my realization early in sobriety. I was just sitting on that sober living couch, and I was like, I want to be a social worker. I want to help people who are in my situation. And it's still the same, and you just want to pour your, like you were saying, that empathy. You just want to pour your heart out into everybody and like give every last drop to people. And then the head comes in to do the work that the heart is trying to tell you to do, if that makes sense. It takes a good balance of that, I guess, administrative head shit that you got to do, like, pulling yourself sometimes out of like corporate mindset. Sometimes if you're working with an organization, you kind of have to just focus on the person.
So is the burnout or the stress, you didn't say burnout, but like now that you're back at work, does that come more from the corporate side or from the trying to help people side?
Without saying too much, it comes from a systemic side. Like when we were talking with Seth about certain things, we have to have these, like, these things in place so people can get care. And sometimes the administrative and, how do I phrase this? A lot of like unpaid sort of tasks that you do that help people can get caught up in that heart work, but it's a systemic thing. Like if you were independent, like an independent clinician, which I never want to be, just to make clear, everybody in my
Wait,
everybody,
how come though?
I think I'm meant for something bigger. I think I'm meant for something that's going to drive systemic change and be on more of the, like Seth, like the policy end of things with social work and crisis social work. I thrive in crises.
Oh, right. Another way to say independent is private, right? You don't want to be private.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Private practice. Absolutely not. No, absolutely not. As
Because
much.
it's a matter of just being accessible to the types of clients that really need you, right?
Right. Plus I as much as I love being a clinical social worker, as much as I absolutely adore my clients and everyone I get to meet, I want to make a systemic change. I want to make a broader change, like a macro change. I'm very happy to help people doing micro social work, as in like clinical therapy. I just like get this overwhelming feeling of like I was sort of like meant for something bigger. So maybe, like, one day I'll own my own domestic violence crisis center and then like see a couple of people on the side, because I would love to see people on the side. I just wouldn't like to make it my whole identity as a private practice.
Hmm.
That's kind of not where I saw myself when I went into social work.
That would be incredible. A domestic violence crisis center. Is
Like,
that one
yeah,
of your ambitions?
that's like a reach ambition. Like I would love to open up something like that or do something huge like that. Who knows what's in store for the future, but for right now, I'm just, helping individuals and helping them get through what they can. Sometimes it's just a listening ear. I had somebody tell me the other day, "Oh, I just really like talking to you." And I was like, that actually really warmed my heart, because when I feel like a shit clinician and someone says, "I like talking to you," I'm like, "Okay, all right, that's good." So
That's
that's
kind
kind
of
of
like the fundamental thing, right?
right, right. But yeah, so with social work in general, we get paid very horribly, and we also put in the most humanitarian work you could think of. And, it causes burnout. It causes emotional vicarious trauma, from hearing people's stories. It causes you to reevaluate what you're doing and what your life is about. But yeah, I genuinely like talking to a lot of people. I'm an extrovert, so I can always find something to say.
I've never heard you describe yourself in that way, but yeah, you're an avowed, out and proud extrovert, huh?
I am. And the shitty thing is though, with burnout and stress, it can make me feel like an introvert because I'm trying to conserve your body's like trying to conserve your energy as much as possible. And so like, when you have a social event or something like that or whatever, you often have to be like, look, like I can't make it. I need to rest. And there's a lot of resting involved and like defining what that rest is. For me, a lot of it is right at this moment because the stress has been so severe in the past several months or the past year that, right now for me is staying in bed on a beautiful sunny Washington day, which sucks, but it is what it is and I'm fine with it. But
Staying in bed, see, I don't know, to me, that sounds really nice.
oh God,
You can
yeah.
always just open the curtains for like a minute and, notice
Yeah.
that the weather's beautiful out there and just go back to sleep.
How is your mental health? How have you been dealing with your mental health?
I still have difficulty just sitting with my feelings. I definitely noticed that. I think, I took a cake for, as you know, and you were so sweet about wishing me happy birthday, but I took a cake for 8 years on June 1st. Yeah. And then this Monday, which I don't know what Monday was, it was like the 8th or 9th or something. But I went and to my home group because I'd been in Europe for the last 3 weeks. And then I took my chip there and made my pitch kind of halfway about sponsorship. When I had my rock climbing accident, I managed to not get re-addicted to opiates in my recovery. I don't know how I slipped that noose, but I started sponsoring a friend of mine, kind of like on the downslope of my recovery from that injury. And like looking back, I think so that would have put the beginning of my sponsorship of him, like at like year 5 or 6 or something like that. And I think looking back that that was instrumental in keeping me recovering because it's just important. I'm noticing to like, because I think things do change. Like your life changes structurally if you stay off drugs and alcohol, and especially if you're working some kind of program, however lazily or intermittently. Like your life just has a hard time growing mold in the way that it used to, and your life just starts to look so much different. I'm sure you can attest to that than it did before. But what does that mean? Is that now that it's looking so different, you start to forget what what it was like. Or I mean, I'll just speak for myself. Like I remember it vividly, and it's like this dark cloud, that like I can access whenever but like for my addictive voice, it's important to always be like, in contact with that voice, in conversation with it, and kind of like letting it know what its place is, which is end of the table, buddy. You're not getting up. You don't get to direct my actions,
Mhm.
and then reaching for a solution someplace else. And I think just like having somebody who was really at a kind of bottom that I was at, and being able to having an opportunity to go through the steps with him, and I'll just like call myself out, like such a shitty like step, like the program that I worked and like the reading and the retention of like the prayers and things like that, like terrible. Like I've just this, I'm not again. You went to a lot of school to do what you do, so I imagine you're pretty good at it. But like, I'm just kind of very fake it till you make it school of like working the steps and suiting up and showing up. But I learned better. I'll come up with a better sense later. But I learned better sitting with him and reading it all over again. And like that, I think is just kind of all that sponsorship is really, or that's like primarily what it is that you're a friend or a peer who's just maybe got a little more time, a little bit further down the path than the other person, and you are doing with him what was done, what you did with your sponsor, and then in doing so, they learn something and they get to work their steps, but then you get to relearn it, and yeah, and so yeah, so I was. I wasn't sure what to do, but I did call out my sponsee by name in the meeting because everybody knows him and everybody knows I'm sponsoring him. But usually, usually, I don't know, you'll say like, I work with a sponsee, but I just said, hey, like, here's my guy and I'm just so proud of him. And I worked the steps with him and it kept me sober and I had nothing to do. I had very little to do with it. I think I said nothing. I had got nothing to do with it, but he's doing so well, and he's such a good guy now, and his life is, as is mine, unrecognizable, compared to like what it was just a few years ago. And then a guy came up to me after the meeting and asked if I could sponsor him, which was really cool. And I met with him once. Yeah, yeah, and I think I like him too. I mean, the thing, as you know, with like working with people is like you never know where how long that road's gonna go or what's gonna happen. You just got to take it like case by case. Uh, but great experience with him so far, and I think yeah, I would like to, in my more of a civilian sense than you. I want to keep doing the work of working with people and yeah, and I think that will be the thing that takes me into later and later of sobriety is like, yeah, I mean, if I step away from the rooms or something like that, I got to make sure I'm working with somebody. I got to like stay connected to some kind of spirit of recovery. Maybe there will be times where it's just you and I will just be doing the show, but this is a form of, you know, this is an offering to the recovery gods. So in a sense.
When you said you've had a hard time sitting with your feelings, here's me in therapist mode. When you said a hard time sitting with your feelings, what does that mean?
My negative self-talk. I
Yeah.
mean, because I'm ambitious, about my stuff, like I'm trying to really get my writing. I don't even want to say my writing career going. I just want to get my writing craft going. Like I want to be a better writer, and I feel like that's going very slowly, and so I don't think I'm a very good writer, but like I'm writing more now, and I'm being faced with my writing regularly, which is the only way to get better, right? But it's a very unpleasant process. So I'm agitated while I'm writing. I'm agitated when I'm not writing. So I'll take any opportunity to not think about myself.
And sitting in your feelings is hard and it's healing. That's what I always tell people is to when you have those horrible feelings or that negative self-talk, listen to it and honor it. Like try to be friends with it is what I've been told. Like try to acknowledge it. Like where did you come from? Like why are you talking right now? Like and the classic, where do you feel that in your body? And so sitting with negative feelings, in my opinion, is really healing because otherwise and in sobriety we get to feel those feelings, right, where they're not covered by drugs or alcohol anymore. And so feeling all the good feelings, feeling all the bad feelings, sitting in all of that, I think is profound and what actually gets you to a place of stillness, like you said. Like, I'm not knocking on you for for compartmentalizing and packing your schedule.
Oh, I didn't think you were.
No, no, no. It's a good distraction because there's plenty of therapy modalities that, promote distractions and being of service and being useful. But it's at a certain point when you run out of gas there, it's like, how can I be friends with myself? How can I talk to myself in a kind and compassionate way? And how can I honor this dreadful feeling that's coming towards me and inside of me? How can I somehow access that and repel it so I can be in that stillness? That's what I've experienced. And that's what I've experienced with people that I guess I can say heal. Like, cause I consider myself a healer. Somebody called me their healer. So I'm going to just say I'm a healer.
Mm, That's lovely. So being friends with it or like, finding some way of staying in touch with it, whatever you want to call the negativity, the darkness, the discomfort, but just kind of, I don't know, trying to make some kind of peace.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened when I have those feelings. Like I've been having those feelings of I'm a shitty clinician. I sit with it. I'm like, where, okay, what where's this coming from? Is this coming from some traumatic situation that happened in the past? Is this coming from a very little interaction that I shouldn't be worried about kind of thing? Just try to like process it internally. Like, where is it coming from? What's it saying? What does it want you to do? What purpose does it serve for me so I can bring the good out? Because I believe that every single thing in life is a lesson. And I think that pain is the biggest lesson that we get to learn about. I lost my job 3 years ago at a job that I really, really enjoyed. And that translates now sometimes into being very hyper vigilant and being scared that I'm going to be let go for absolutely no reason, or I'm going to be reprimanded for absolutely no reason. And sitting with those feelings like, where the fuck is this coming from? Okay, yeah, and now I remember how I got ambushed at my last job and then got let go for no explanation. So, kind of where's this shit coming from, and how can I extinguish it? How can I prove myself wrong?
Do you find yourself, when you kind of past trip on all the things that happen, do you find yourself thinking more often, wow, people are just so kind and gracious, and I've just gotten so many lucky breaks? Or is it more the opposite? Like, Jesus, people are fucking, you know, I, is it colored? Is it colored more by your most negative experiences or the positive ones?
I guess it's a little of both, because when people are shitty or you have a bad experience, then it's nice to look at the good experiences and the good people, even though it's hard to in the moment. I had one time at my last job, or my job in LA as a domestic violence specialist. I was in a hospital helping somebody, being an advocate for somebody uh, who had just gotten assaulted. And she said the most heinous thing to me. She said, like, oh, dealing with you is worse than getting sexually assaulted. And I was like, damn, okay. Like, but I had to sit with those feelings. I'm like, am I like worse? Am I worse than a rapist? Like, it's like,
That was your Yelp review.
that was my Yelp review. I don't know what, I don't remember the circumstances. This is probably before COVID, but like, yeah, I remember thinking like, wow, that's really harsh, and that's really damn. Like, and how do I deal with this feeling? But then I'm like, I can appreciate all the kind letters and all the kind postcards. Like, I get postcards, I get gifts from people I've worked with. And one lady it was actually kind of cool. This was at my internship in grad school. I was a domestic violence counselor, and we had worked together for a whole year. And she went from, being in this dark place to opening up her own cleaning supplies line. Like, she made an organic, like, kitchen spray or something. And
Wow.
that's what she gifted me at the end of my internship. And so,
From her own company.
right. Yes. And so she was a really good example of how I change people's lives, and how, gift giving is sometimes a token of their appreciation instead of words of thank you for being there for me, which I appreciate. And words of affirmation it's my love language.
I've just noticed so many people cheering me on, or so many people like who, for whatever reason, find it important to like take some time out to kind of like give me an attaboy. And I'm not saying this to toot my own horn about anything, more putting the light on them and just being like, that's a positive mechanism. Like I try to do that with people, when I see somebody who's really being a good helper out there in the world, like I think the way that we honor that is we have to support it and encourage it. And, I just noticed, because there's like, the Donald Trump school of hard knocks is like, fuck everyone, be out for yourself, lie to everyone, screw everyone over, because there's no God but me. The only way to navigate through the world is by taking. And, anybody who is taken from is a sucker. and they deserved it anyway. But maybe it's just a reaction that more people are having. Like, I've never felt more despair at like the state of the world, how things are organized. Or at the same time, I feel so much love for my neighbors.
I was catching up on the news this morning, and more promises and then unpromises from, attacks on Iran, and then like, let's do a peace talk. And then,
It's so hard to
it's
follow, isn't it? It's really hard to follow. And I do follow it, but it feels kind of like the worst game of baseball you've ever seen. It's just like they keep adding innings, and like it's just crawling along, and it's baseball, only thousands of people are dying and billions of dollars are just being lit on fire.
right. I thought this was going to be a 3-week war, as we were promised,
And
but
only on the weekends too, right? That was the other thing, to make sure the stock market is, manipulated and to benefit all those guys. Yeah, just only on the weekends.
Elon Musk becoming the first trillionaire.
You put a T on there, and I just feel like there's already just been growing sentiment, across ideological lines, like negative sentiment towards the billionaire class, the
Mhm.
Epstein class. Fewer of the usual stands kind of coming out and saying like, what, you gotta hate a guy just for being successful. It's kind of taken on this grotesque proportion, and there's just no there's no bullshitting anymore. It's like these are ill-gotten gains. Like no individual should have that much money.
That's why I'm so grateful about our mayor, Bob Ferguson, introducing the millionaire's tax.
Well, that's cool. Yeah, I'll never forget him. He's, first of all, Bob Ferguson he's got he's a good guy, right? You like Bob Ferguson?
I like Bob Ferguson, yeah.
But he seems like Mr. Feeney or something. Like, I just get this vibe. Like, I don't know what he looks like, but is he kind of like who was the guy who ran with Harris? Tim Walz. Does he have like a high school basketball coach kind of energy? No.
No, he gives off the energy of like a retired, well, not retired. He's middle-aged, maybe a little older. Maybe like a AP bio teacher. Like,
Right. A little less macho than the coach, but yeah.
yeah, he's subdued, I guess, looking, but what his content is powerful. He looks a little bit marsupial. I don't know how else to say it.
Marsupial.
He
He
looks a little
he
bit.
carries his aids around in a little pouch on his belly.
Mhm. Yeah, he's got some facial features that are marsupial, but besides the point, I really enjoy. I'm really liking his policies. He also made a declaration of a day dedicated to missing Native and Indigenous women, which is a huge problem nationwide, and especially here because of all of the Native American tribes in the state. But God, when I see this news, it's normally on Facebook and not Instagram, which I should go on more. But it's just tons of right wingers just hating Bob Ferguson. But they're all, if you know Washington, it's all on the east side. That's Trump land near Idaho. And so,
Well,
yeah,
yeah, it's like your state is in this sense, it's like California in that it's stratified, or it's segregated, and there's like a really strong right-wing contingent as well as like a strong liberal contingent. It's not. Is it
yeah,
purple?
no, it's blue.
It's blue. Okay.
It's considered blue because of the population on the west is so dense
Around the
that
cities. Yeah.
around the cities, yeah. So that makes it blue, like through and through blue. But if you go over to the east, then you'll probably hear some heinous stuff. I've heard some heinous stuff, even like going a little bit east. I'm just like, oh my God. Like, I thought I moved to like, nature Mecca here with like, pride flags everywhere. But that's just in the city. A lot of there's a lot of there's a lot of Trump folks over on the east, which I'm glad I don't have to encounter, because who wants to deal with that?
Yeah. It's been so long. It's been so long since I've had a conversation with somebody who supports Trump. Like, I've got some conservative friends that I don't talk to very much because I don't want to make time for them.
Hmm.
Let's be honest.
I have
But
a good
like,
friend who's a conservative, but I'm slowly, I don't want to say slowly indoctrinating him, but he's slowly getting into my points, which is great. He supports Ron DeSantis, which is an
Okay.
interesting choice.
Well, so in order to medicate that condition, he should have to hang out with Ron for 48
Right?
hours, and then he will immediately be disabused of that support.
I know. I hate to break it to him. He'll send me things like, oh, Ron DeSantis signed a bill for like no kill shelters or something like that, which is
Oh.
okay. All right. That's
Why not, right? I'll take
why
it.
not? But then also on the same coin, it's Ron DeSantis, and Ron DeSantis, in my eye, is horrible because he opposes abortion and questions LGBTQ rights. Let's shift here from civil rights to no kill animal shelters. Like, good for you, Ron, but at the same time, let's think about civil rights.
This was a lovely conversation.
Very lovely. I wish you were in Washington.
You watch, like, every once in a while, you'll watch like a Marvel movie or like a big studio movie, right? With your partner. You gonna see the Odyssey?
He wants to see it, but yeah, I think I'm gonna see it too. Yeah.
Get your tickets. Yeah, get your tickets, and it's gonna be fun. So I'm just gonna out myself as being insane. I already have 5 sets of tickets for the first month it comes out, so I'm gonna be seeing it 5 times.
Whoa.
I know. That's my addiction. It's just like I get on the computer, I just start. Ooh, the tickets are on sale. I got to go 5 times the first month it comes out. So,
Yeah.
but anyway, you should see it. I bet everybody's gonna like it. It's just gonna be one of those movies that like Titanic or something, like everybody goes to see.
The last one I saw was Fantastic Four, and I enjoyed it.
That was cool. That was kind of like if Mad Men was a superhero.
Yeah.
It had that really, like, I love the visual palette of it. Like the period, like the
It was
Jetsons cars and stuff.
I loved the 60s montage or not motif, not montage. My words.
Yeah, the motif. I wish. Okay, so Pedro Pascal's like he's got the lit. Like I wish I was the type of man who had like the lip ratio, so I could have a mustache like his, because like some mustaches just look so good, and
Yeah.
that's actually like what I remember most about that movie is his mustache. All right, take care, Audrey.
Bye.